Good afternoon. I'm John Rickey, Chair of the Personnel Committee. I'd like to bring this committee to order. Let's start off with roll call, please.
Mr. Rickey.
Here.
Mrs. Hanchett.
Here.
Mrs. Burdick.
Here.
Mr. Havey. Mr. Ricketts Swales. Mrs. Ricketts Swales. Mrs. Root.
Here.
Mr. Rumfelt.
Here.
Mr. Stockin. 6 present, 1 absent.
Okay. First order here, we have referral from other committee, Planning and Economic Development. Planning Director Keir Dearlam is requesting permission to create and fill 1 full-time associate planner, non-unit grade 4, step to base in the planning department. The associate planner will work with towns, villages, and county with creating plans for downtown development, hazard mitigation, GIS work, grants, and comprehensive plans. Some partial funding may be available in the future, but no funding has currently been projected. The annual salary of this position is estimated to be $41,000, with benefits estimated to be $16,000. Funding for this position will be 100% with county funds and is included in the 2022 budget. And I'll move that. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Root, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next up, we have Bobby Budinger, Personnel Officer.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm coming in front of you with some proposed changes to some of the benefits that we have for our non-union employees, and there's 6 of them, and I can touch on each one real quickly and then answer any questions that you guys might have. So the first one addresses the ability to use accruals in half-hour increments. Right now, all of our union employees, which is the bulk of our workforce, they're able to use their accruals in half-hour increments. So if you guys pass this, then that'll allow our non-union employees to do the same, and we'll all be on the same page. The second, do you want me to just go down all of them real quick and then take questions?
If someone has a question, they can chime in.
Okay, very good. The second one is it's preloading for our department heads and our deputy department heads that we bring in from the outside. We're proposing to preload their vacation days. So right now, when we bring someone in from the outside, they earn 1 vacation day a month, so that they get 12 in the year. We're not changing the amount, it's still gonna be 12, but what we're proposing is that for those positions that they have it from day 1, just makes it easier for them to plan their vacations and their days off. But it's not giving them any extra days, it's just preloading it. The third one, it's changes to our buyout, both changes to the process that we use and the amount. And the amounts were $450 and $900 for single and family respectively. All of our unions are now getting paid the $1,000 and $2,000, and they've all adopted the new process that I'm asking for you to consider today. So if you pass these changes to our buyout, that'll put the non-union employees on the same page as all the rest of our workforce. Number 4, this is in regards to our retiree health insurance for all those who are retired and are eligible for retiree health insurance. So right now, we do not make them go on a Medicare Advantage plan. What we're proposing is that if you retire and you are eligible for our insurance, that when you become eligible, you have to take Medicare Part B and you have to go to one of our Medicare Advantage plans. We are self-insured, which means we pay dollar for dollar for all of our claims and all of our prescription drug costs. So it's very important that we try to move these people to a Medicare Advantage plan where we pay a monthly premium, but they pay for all the claims, pay for all the prescription drugs that they have. Just remember, our retiree groups, those are the people that have the higher cost in health claims and prescription drug costs. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Number 5, longevity. So we pay longevity for our employees, for most of our employees, and the unit people, the people that in departments, the ones that are not in a union, we were lagging behind all the other unions. So this is an attempt to get us on par. It's actually a little bit better than most of the unions. They're all a little bit different, but it pretty much puts us on par. You can see the amounts that they're changing. Probably the biggest change is adding a 30-plus year tier, which, someone's here 30-plus years, they probably earned that. So this has been something that's been a topic of conversation since I've come here. So finally, we're addressing that. And there was a second change to that too. Right now, every 2 weeks we get a paycheck, and we get a prorated amount of that longevity in there. So I get $34 a month or something like that in each paycheck. So what we're proposing to do is pay that in a lump sum each year. Same amount of money. Well, it'll be the new amounts that we have in here, but you get it in a lump sum versus having it in small pieces.
Bobby, can I just ask you a quick question on that?
Absolutely. Yep.
So every year that someone's here, we give them a lump sum, but now it's in their paycheck.
Yes,
So
right
this is
now.
in addition to any salary or anything else?
Yeah, right now, I'll use me as an example. I'm 13 and a half years, so I'm in that second group. I get $900 currently. Right now, that's broken up over the 26 paychecks, so $34, whatever it is, a month. What we're proposing is changing that amount to the new amounts listed, and then on my anniversary date, I'll just get that lump sum, one paycheck, and I won't have that small $34 added to each paycheck. Just changing how we pay it.
Can you give me a little history of when this was started and why?
Longevity?
I can tell you, every employee in the county gets this. So it's in all of our collective
Yes.
bargaining agreements. And I don't know the history per se. This puts your management on par with 3 of your unions. There is one union that will get more longevity than what's here because it's just in their contract. It's been in their contract forever. And most of these changes are actually to keep your management competitive with what was put into your bargaining agreements recently. You don't want to penalize people for moving up from ASME or PEF to non-unit or department head level. So, and then the one on the accruals, preloading those makes it easier to recruit people that are department heads, because it's tough to find someone to come in here on a very high level position and say, I can only give you 1 day off a month. So that is something we'd talked about for a while, and that change was there for that reason. But I've spoken to your personnel chair quite a bit about this, and he's been on the negotiating committee for all 4 of those bargaining agreements. And I believe he understands that this is not anything really more than our collective bargaining agreements. It's kind of on par with that, just maybe slightly better.
Thank you.
And I will say, like I mentioned before, this is a sensitive area with a lot of our non-unit and our department heads, even though the money might not be significant in the grand scheme of things, but it is something that's been a topic of conversation for a very long time. So I think it is very important.
Mr. Healy?
You want to hit your mic, I think.
There you go. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe the county administrator already touched on this, but this is common in all public union contracts. I'm aware of, having been a previous state employee. I'm sure Mr. Ricky, City of Olean, when he worked for the City of Olean, there was similar things, towns, school districts, and even at one time, and it may not be as prevalent, I'm not aware, but in the private sector, I know back many eons ago when I worked at Turbidyne, that there was similar things in the private sector also. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I don't want to comment on how other employers are doing it, but I do believe this to be very common.
Thank you.
I believe it's not only common, but what Mr. Budinger has laid out. Some of these proposals, as he mentioned, go to health insurance and controlling the county's cost on health insurance, and really benefits the county maybe a little bit more than the employee. And then the other 2 are just kind of bringing the employee up to where all our other employees are.
Mr.
I have a question. And it has to do with the lump sum versus breaking it out throughout the year. Is there, I guess fiscally, is it easier to do it that way versus, is there a reason why you're going to the lump sum versus putting it in their paycheck? Is there an easier way, or is the treasurer?
Actually, it's not, right now, we divide it by the 26 pay periods a year. There has been a value impact of the longevity that people tend to not realize what they're getting for a year. So lump sum wise, it's more of a thank you for being here for this long and here's your check. Versus this is your $20 every 2 weeks or your $40 every 2 weeks. It's just kind of a more of an impact item. It is easier for us probably to do it so that you can do a lump sum on the anniversary date and then they're done. There's no prorating if they leave during the year because they're entitled to it for the year. They've earned it for that year. So there's none of that. If they leave in the middle of the year, do we have to make them whole? Okay. So there's a little bit of an advantage. This probably is the group to try it on. If it didn't work with this group, then we could go back to paying biweekly. But this is probably the group of people to try it on.
I think people notice it when you get it in one check versus having it broken down into small little pieces. It gets lost in your paycheck, quite honestly.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. I know a lot of this isn't significant in terms of money, but has anyone calculated the actual budgetary impact of these changes?
We didn't do it individually. Obviously, it's just a proposal at this point for you to decide on. We have done that with the unions as the unions have increased, but it depends on who's where and how much they're getting today as to what the impact is. All the other unions are based on this same structure, that it's between years, except for the nurses. They increase every year. This, besides all the other levels of longevity, the only level that really outbeats the nurses union right now is that 30+ years, and that was just to get this management above that.
Does the 30+ year tier exist in all the other CBAs?
Yes.
That
year 30, they get a dollar amount, but it's not this amount.
for the nurse, yeah.
Yeah, the nurses get a 30-year level.
It's a 25+ year
Right.
level for the unions.
Okay, last question. The preloading the vacation days in year one, can people carry those vacation days over the next year and then sell back in the following year after their 1-year anniversary?
They can, but remember, we're not giving them extra days during that year. They're still just getting their 12 days in that first year. It's really just allowing them, if they get hired in January, to be able to take a vacation in July, whereas before maybe they couldn't do that.
So the mechanism exists already for new hires, that if they wait until their year anniversary, they've
Sure.
accrued 12 days and then they can sell back.
Yes, and they could actually sell back, even in their first year, the mechanism exists where they can actually, if they didn't use any vacation days, they could sell that back. We put that restriction on here, just, we think that's appropriate if we're going to preload them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Not even got to the good one yet. Is there any other questions before we jump to the last one? Okay. And the last one, this is address part-time employees. As you probably, most of you already know, our part-time employees, well, let me give you a little history before I jump into this one. When I first started here, we had part-time positions here and there. And you didn't necessarily know if they were entitled to benefits. You'd have to actually go to the resolution creating that part-time position and see, did they approve that position with vacation, with whatever. And they were all over the board. There was no uniformity to it. So there was an attempt to make that a little more standardized. Resolution 7712, which is our part-time resolution, which addresses benefits for our part-time employees. And that actually did help quite a bit. It's time to readdress that resolution. The language in there is a little bit confusing, and there's some changes that we think should be made. So we're recommending a change to that. So right now, what we're recommending is that part-time employees do not get any benefits, which is mostly true right now. I will say for the record, because it's not in here, that we're looking at having exceptions in there for elected officials and department heads, because you guys are all elected officials, and the intent was not to take that away. So I'll make sure I say that so it's in the records. Obviously, there are some benefits that we cannot take away. A part-time employee can still join the New York State retirement system. The Affordable Care Act's still in place. If they work so many hours, and I don't have that hours in front of me, but if they work so many hours, then they would be entitled to health insurance. So it's not going to supersede any federal, state, or local laws or regulations. But the intent is, if you work part-time, you work for the salary, there's no benefits.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. How's this going to affect like the public defenders, the DA's office with the part-timers? Because right now we're having a hard time recruiting right now. If we take away the part-time benefits for them, how do we expect to, that's one of the things we can hold for them, you know?
Well, again, this is just a proposal that we're putting in there. There's not that many, looking at our records, I believe that it'll affect the ADAs. They were an exception in there, so that definitely affect them. And the proposal is that when they have to be reappointed, when there's an election, there's a new DA, they get appointed again, that they're grandfathered until that point, and then they would revert to what we're proposing. We do have one other employee, part-time employee, that's been here a very long time, that's in a not a public officer position, that's grandfathered. We're proposing to allow that person to continue with the benefits that they have until they either leave our employment or they leave that position. And then that would go back, that would be gone then.
That was put in there at my request because I feel that is a better management tool for your health insurance as well as your time and attendance. Part-time employees will still be able to earn health insurance, so the assistant district attorneys are currently the only attorneys right now that are able to get health insurance. We don't allow this to apply to our public defenders or our DSS attorneys. They could still qualify for this under the Affordable Health Care Act, but they would have to clock in and out and show us that they are actually working the hours necessary, which I believe is an average of 30 hours a week or 130 hours a month to qualify for that. And right now they're not doing that. So we don't know how many hours they're actually working, and we're giving them health insurance. So I would prefer to have a control mechanism on that.
And I think there needs to be consistency across the board. As the county administrator just said, not all attorneys are getting that benefit, part-time attorneys. It's the ADAs. So just on the basis of fairness, I think we need to be uniform in how we approach this.
Yeah, I'm just concerned right now. We have a vacant ADA spot, and I know how hard it is to recruit attorneys in this area. So I'm just concerned that we take that out of there and lose that, how it's going to affect us recruiting.
I can give you a little bit of the history on that, probably because I was one of the ADAs that was affected by this back in 2005. The salary was right around $30,000, and you couldn't get people to commit to be an attorney, work for the county for $30,000. So the county offered health insurance to the assistant district attorneys to offset the lower cost and salary. We're now paying one of our assistant district attorneys $80,000 and giving him health insurance, which is more than some of our full-time attorneys are making. So the logic of providing the health insurance really isn't there for the assistant district attorneys as it was when we paid them a very minimal amount.
Mr. Healy?
Maybe just a little off topic, but on the topic, do part-time employees who currently get their medical insurance, are they able to take the stipend in lieu of the insurance like the full-time employees?
The buyout?
Yes.
You can only buy out if you're entitled to the insurance.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Sear?
Mr. Chairman, I know I'm not on your board, but I would respectfully ask if you can table this just so you've had more discussion and you have more clarification and understanding of this. That's all I have to say.
I have a question for Carissa. Do they currently clock in? Do we know how many hours they're working?
Our assistant district attorneys have not clocked in despite requests to clock in.
So I want to go back to what you had said before. They would be eligible for health insurance if they clocked in, and so we could see how many hours that they're working. Is that what I heard?
Correct. The Affordable Care Act requires us to provide health insurance to any employee who works over a certain hour a week, and they would need to prove they work those hours.
Right, they would have to work those hours, though, to qualify, yes.
Right. So it's
That's,
not,
that's to any employee, that's
Right.
not just them, yeah.
so they could get health insurance if they were willing to clock in and show the hours that they were working.
Yes.
I got one more question. Part-time employees at the sheriff's department, they get health insurance?
In the current part-time resolution, it talks about part-time corrections officers who work more than 1,300 hours. Again, I think this is another reason why we needed to update this. We have the Affordable Care Act now that outlines when you can earn eligibility for health insurance. So whether they work at the DA's office or out at the jail, any employee works so many hours, and I don't know what that is off the top of my head, I apologize. There's a mechanism in there for them to be qualified for
It
health
used
insurance.
to be more than 20 hours a week, I think, was what it
Yeah.
was at one time.
30 hours, correct. So there's before there wasn't a mechanism in there to give someone health insurance that wasn't full-time. We have that now. So that's one of the reasons we think.
And you
it's
just
time
wanna
to
make
update
everything
this.
uniform.
And we want to make it uniform. Again, I'll go back to not all attorneys were grandfathered in this last resolution in 2012.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if the committee does decide to entertain a possible motion to table, it would require a motion, a second, and there would be no discussion. It would just be a vote from the committee today, just as a procedural note for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one last question for me. I'm happy with 1 through 5. 6, I kind of would like spelled out. I don't know, that's why I'd like to table it, so we could actually get a copy of what you're proposing instead of just a paragraph. Would that be possible, or? So, I mean, I'm not a
We
legal
can
expert.
do whatever
but-
you request.
All right. Mr.
We have a request to table. Do we have a second?
I'll make second.
You make
Oh, okay, I'm requesting, I'll motion the table. I was just talking.
I'll second it.
So that ends that?
No, you need to vote now as a committee on the motion to table.
Okay, let's take a vote. Roll call.
Mr. Ricky,
No.
Mrs. Hanchett,
Yes.
Mrs. Burdick,
No.
Mrs. Ricketts Wales,
Yes.
Mrs. Root,
No.
Mr. Rumfelt,
Yes.
3 ayes, 3 noes, 1 absent. Oh, Mr. Stockin. Okay, so that would be 3 ayes, 4 noes, and 1 absent.
Can I just make a comment?
Go ahead, Ms. Burdick.
I just think that our department heads and anyone else that this affects should be treated as fair as our union employees. I think that, those are the leaders of the departments, and they certainly should get at least the same benefits as the people that they're supervising. Thank you.
I just like to state this still has to go before the full board. There's plenty of time for talk. No one approached me until 2 minutes before this meeting about any of this. No department heads. I had a few legislators, but I'm a little bit disappointed that our ADA's office doesn't keep track of their time. So we'll hash this out with a full board.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That was just on a motion to table. You still need to do a motion in a second to approve this for the committee. You're getting your exercise in parliamentary
All right.
procedure this afternoon.
We don't
Glad we
have
have
that,
you,
do
'cause
we?
I don't know what's,
I thought you were doing an excellent job, Chairman.
We can still discuss it.
nobody would have known.
No, all right, so we voted to not table it. We can open it up back to discussion again, and we can ask some more questions or ask for clarifications. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do we need a motion?
Mr.
before-
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead with this, but I'd like to add that we have the legislators get it spelled out what we're going to be voting on.
Specifically, number 6, is that what, we could do that?
Yes, sir, number 6.
Mr. Rumfeld, what would it be that you would want to see on that? Because we do have a chart of where all the unions are at this point and where the non-unit is and what the proposal is, so we could provide that.
Just how the part-time is going to affect and.
Oh, you're talking about the next one.
Just,
Okay.
just number 6 is the only one.
Okay.
I want to see how it's going to affect the part-time, who it's going to, like, not necessarily who, but how and what departments.
Titles and whatever.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
draft something a little more comprehensive than, this was a summary.
Yeah,
It does have what we're looking to do in here, but we can provide you
I
something.
appreciate
Yep,
that. Thank
Not a
you.
problem.
So I'm really confused. Doesn't surprise anybody here today, does it?
It's kind of different for this committee. It's usually-
So if, I'm going to go back to the ADAs and the lawyers. If they clocked in and we kept track of their time, they would be eligible for health insurance.
If they meet the,
If they meet the
work
requirement.
enough hours,
Would
correct.
that be across the board to anybody who was part-time?
That is correct. That is the Affordable Care Act spells out when we are obligated to provide health insurance to an employee.
So is that option open for all the part-time employees regardless?
Regardless, that is
Okay.
correct, yes.
And so we're trying to actually get away from, is this what I'm reading into this? You're trying to do away for health insurance for part-time across the
We're
board?
trying to standardize how we apply benefits to part-timers, which includes health insurance. Again, we will follow the Affordable Care Act and any other regulations that's out there, but do it in a uniform fashion. So whether you work at the jail or the district attorney's office or whatever office, the same rules are applying to everybody.
We had provided health insurance for part-time employees across the board. And then this board decided that that probably wasn't a very cost-effective move. And so we passed a resolution saying no more part-time health insurance unless you're currently in a position you'd be grandfathered in, and all but one of those people have now retired or moved on, or part-time ADAs, part-time correction officers, legislators, or election commissioners. After that
workers'
resolution
compensation.
was done, a few years after that, the Affordable Care Act passed. So the Affordable Care Act wasn't at play then. If it had been, we probably wouldn't have written that resolution. We would have just said anybody that works those hours or anybody that we specifically needed a carve-out exception for, like elected officials, we would do. But this is just trying to bring that up to date and be fair across the board, treat all our part-time employees fairly, treat all our employees fairly about clocking in and clocking out as well.
Mr.
And-
Barnes,
And my understanding is if it passes this committee, it will go to Ways and Means and it will go to full board, so there'll be plenty of time for more discussion.
Mr. Barnes,
My question is, can we get, as legislators, can we get a copy of what you presented?
Yes, I believe it was sent out.
It's right in the agenda
Okay,
packet.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
The whole thing is there, all five, all six?
I put them all on one MOE. I hope that was okay with everybody because they were so short. And
I guess I printed everything out at home, but I didn't get that for some reason.
And even though these will be a resolution, they actually go in a much larger document, which is a department head handbook, non-unit and department head handbook. It's not just like, we don't just pass out these 6 items to people. We put them within our guidelines that we already have established.
Yep, and that's something we're reworking. We've been reworking, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you at some point. But this will be the things you pass in here, if you pass them, will be incorporated in that handbook.
if this passes and goes through the whole procedure, when will this take effect? 2022, 2023?
Well, are you specifically asking about number 6 or the
All of
rest
them.
of it? All of it.
All of them. When will this
Is-
take effect once this gets passed? Immediately?
It depends how you pass it. The way that I presented it would be passed, whenever it's passed, it would
Immediately take
go into
effect.
effect, right? For number 6, since that seems to be the bulk of the questions, the assistant ADAs would not lose their health insurance right away. It would be upon reappointment, so that gives them a little bit of time. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
right.
Mr. Healy?
I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused. We came out of the table that was defeated, and then Mr. Rumfeld, I think he made a motion to move this. Was there a second to move it? So you need a second, then
Second it.
Is this to move it out of committee forward? Okay, we have a second. Okay. Ms. Root, all in favor?
Aye.
That's moving forward. Okay,
now I'm back on track, thank you.
clear as mud, right?
Ricky,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I'm all in favor of this. I comment on number 4 with the retirees. I was with a similar situation once, and we made the same change, and our cost went from $5,500 to just under $400 for virtually the same coverage with the same provider.
To me, that's probably one of the most important ones out
Yeah.
of this group. I know the focus was on some of the other ones, and they're all important, but that one is very significant in my opinion. Yes, thank you.
Well done.
Okay, so now we have lots of time to figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's see. We did that. We were all in favor. No?
Yeah, we did. I said
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we
You
moved it out of
voted,
committee.
Mr. Chairman. You're all set.
We're all
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any old business? Any new business? Anything for the good of the order?
Mr. Chairman, with there appear to be no other business to come before this committee, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Root, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank